Mercedes are winning everything, but inside the garage, something is starting to break. Because the telemetry does not just show Antonelli beating Russell. It shows why Russell is being trapped. A car shutdown while fighting for the lead. A battery failure that turned a possible victory into 0 points. A championship gap that exploded from 18 points to 43 in one afternoon. And a 19-year-old rookie who has won every race he has finished. That is not just speed. That is momentum turning into pressure. Now Russell is third in the championship, Antonelli is leading with 156 points, and Mercedes have a problem no dominant team wants to admit. Their fastest weapon might also be their biggest threat. Because if the battery fails again, it will not just cost points. It could decide which Mercedes driver becomes champion, and which one gets buried by his own car. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why the tension at Mercedes feels so dangerous, you have to look past the championship table. Because on paper, Mercedes look unstoppable. They have the car. They have the wins. They have the lead. They have a 19-year-old rookie driving like he was born for the front of Formula 1. And they have George Russell, a proven winner, a driver who started the season believing this could finally be his championship year. That should be the perfect problem. 2 fast drivers. 1 dominant car. A team back at the top. But that is not what the telemetry is saying. The data is showing something far more uncomfortable. Mercedes are not simply managing an internal rivalry. They are managing a reliability crisis that is changing the shape of that rivalry. And the problem is that the failures have not hit like background noise. They have arrived at the exact moments when the pressure was highest. That is why Russell looks like he is being destroyed. Not because he suddenly forgot how to race. Not because Antonelli has beaten him in every possible way. But because the season keeps handing Antonelli the cleanest version of the story, while Russell keeps getting trapped inside the messiest one. Canada was the moment everything shifted. Russell had taken pole position. He was not chasing from the midfield. He was not trying to rescue a damaged weekend. He was at the front, exactly where a title contender needs to be. He was fighting Antonelli directly for the lead, in the kind of race that can change the emotional balance inside a team. That matters. Because when teammates fight for a win, the result is never just a result. It becomes evidence. It tells the garage who handled the pressure. It tells the engineers who converted the car's potential. It tells the outside world who looks like the stronger championship bet. Russell had the chance to answer Antonelli on track. Then the car switched off. No slow decline. No warning long enough to save the race. No dramatic mistake from the driver. The energy recovery system suffered a sudden shutdown, and the battery failure caused serious damage. Mercedes later linked the issue to heat and deterioration inside the battery. In that instant, Russell's race was gone. And Antonelli's path opened. That is the kind of failure that hurts twice. First, it costs the result. Then, it changes the story. Because if Russell loses a wheel-to-wheel fight, people say Antonelli beat him. If Russell makes a mistake, people say pressure got to him. But when the car dies while he is in the fight, the story becomes crueler. The points still disappear, but the question remains. What if the race had continued? That unanswered question is poison inside a rivalry. It gives Russell frustration without closure. It gives Antonelli the win without the full fight reaching the finish. And it gives Mercedes a problem no team principal wants in a title battle between teammates. The car became part of the result. After Canada, the numbers looked brutal. Antonelli's lead over Russell jumped from 18 points to 43. That is not a small swing. That is the difference between pressure and control. And for Russell, it happened on a day when he could have changed everything. This is why telemetry matters more than the headline. The headline says Antonelli is destroying Russell. The telemetry shows that Russell lost one of his highest value chances because the battery system failed when he needed the car most. That does not erase Antonelli's brilliance. It does not make his wins less real. But it explains why the gap feels so harsh. Antonelli has been ruthless when the car survives. Russell has been punished when the car fails. And in a championship, that combination is devastating. Then came Barcelona, and Mercedes were forced to face the worst possible truth. The problem was not finished. This time, the failure hit Antonelli. He had just overtaken Russell and moved into second place behind Lewis Hamilton. That move mattered because it showed Antonelli still had the confidence, the pace, and the race control to beat his teammate even when the weekend was not simple. Then, near the end, the car shut down. Again, the symptoms pointed toward the electrical system. Again, Mercedes had to look at a powerful car that could not reach the finish. Again, the team lost points it should have collected. Antonelli said he felt a bit empty. That is the perfect description of what these failures do. They do not just create anger. They create emptiness. Because the driver knows the effort was real, the result was close, and then the machine took the ending away. But here is the key difference. Antonelli's failure hurt Mercedes, but it did not rescue Russell. Russell only gained a small amount back. The championship lead remained heavy. Antonelli was still the driver in control of the standings. And the perception did not fully change, because even in the race where Antonelli retired, he had already overtaken Russell before the shutdown. That is what makes Russell's situation so difficult. Even when the reliability crisis finally hits his teammate, the damage does not reverse. It only confirms that Mercedes have a bigger issue. Toto Wolff said it clearly. To finish first you have to finish. Mercedes cannot fight for a championship if every second race, one car loses points. That sentence cuts through everything. Because Mercedes are not asking whether the car is fast enough. It is. They are asking whether the car can be trusted. And in a championship where their own drivers are fighting each other, trust becomes everything. A driver can attack harder if he trusts the car. He can plan a race if he trusts the systems. He can fight his teammate if he believes the result will be decided on track. But if the battery can suddenly fail, then every stint carries fear. The driver might not admit it. The team might try to manage it. But it is there. Somewhere in the back of the mind, every time the car enters a demanding phase of the race, every time temperatures rise, every time the energy system works at full load. Will it hold? That question changes racing. It changes how engineers speak. It changes how strategists think. It changes how team principals watch the timing screens. And it changes how drivers process pressure. For Antonelli, the pressure is strange. He is young. He is leading. He is being treated like the new force at Mercedes. Every win adds weight to the idea that he is not just the future, but the present. That can build confidence, but it can also become suffocating. Because now every mistake would be magnified. Every race he does not win becomes a question. Every reliability failure risks turning his dream season into a fight he did not expect. But for Russell, the pressure is sharper. He entered this year with the experience advantage. He knew the team. He knew what it meant to lead Mercedes. He had already shown he could win. He had every reason to believe that if Mercedes built the best car, he could be the one to turn it into a title. Now he is looking across the garage at a teenager with momentum. And momentum is brutal. It does not always care about context. It does not wait for fairness. It does not explain that Russell lost a possible victory to a battery failure. It just keeps moving. Antonelli wins, and the story grows. Russell retires, and the gap grows. Antonelli retires, but still stays ahead, and the story survives. That is how a driver gets trapped. Not by one bad result. By a pattern that starts to feel bigger than him. And this is why Mercedes are facing more than a technical repair. They are facing an emotional management problem. How do you keep Russell fully confident when the championship picture is turning against him? How do you protect Antonelli from believing the season is already his? How do you stop the garage from quietly leaning toward the driver with the points lead? How do you make sure the reliability crisis does not become an excuse for one side and pressure for the other? Because inside a team, perception matters. Engineers may say they treat both cars equally. And they should. But human beings feel momentum. Mechanics hear the media questions. Strategists know who is leading the championship. The energy around a driver can change slowly, almost invisibly, until one side of the garage feels like the center of gravity. Russell knows that. Antonelli knows that. Mercedes know that. And that is why the next clean race between them matters so much. Russell needs a race where the car survives, the strategy is fair, the battery holds, and the result is decided by driving. He needs a direct answer. Not a theory. Not a what if. Not a debrief full of missing points. He needs to beat Antonelli on the road. Because until he does, the narrative will keep moving away from him. Antonelli, on the other hand, needs to prove that Canada and Barcelona were not just accidents around a lucky run. He needs to keep showing that when the Mercedes works, he wins because he is extracting more from it. He needs to make the team believe that his lead is not only a product of timing, but of talent. That is why this rivalry is becoming so tense. Both drivers have something to prove. But only one of them currently has the story on his side. And the most uncomfortable part for Mercedes is that their own machinery may still have the final vote. The battery issue is not fully understood. The failures are not identical, but they come from the same general area. Some damaged hardware cannot return quickly for deep analysis because of safety and transport restrictions. The team is working from telemetry, studying temperature spikes, system behavior, and shutdown patterns, trying to understand how to stop the next failure before it happens. That means the answer is not complete. And when the answer is not complete, fear remains. So Mercedes arrive at the next phase of the season with a car that can win every race, but a battery concern that can erase any one of them without mercy. That is the contradiction tearing through the team. They are dominant, but not comfortable. They are leading, but not safe. They have the strongest driver pairing on paper, but that pairing is now under stress because the car has turned rivalry into uncertainty. And this is what the telemetry really reveals. Antonelli is not destroying Russell only because of one lap pace. He is destroying him because the season has lined up in a way that rewards every Antonelli finish, punishes every Russell failure, and turns every Mercedes shutdown into a psychological blow. Russell can still fight back. But he needs the car to stop taking the fight away from him. Because if the next major battery failure hits at the wrong moment again, it may not just decide a race. It may decide which Mercedes driver gets remembered as the future, and which one becomes the victim of a championship that slipped away before he ever got a clean chance to win it. But the tension inside Mercedes becomes even more serious when you realize this is not only a two-driver story. It is a system story. Because when a driver loses a race because of pace, the team knows where to look. Maybe the setup was wrong. Maybe the tire warm-up was poor. Maybe the balance was unstable. Maybe the driver made a mistake. Those problems are painful, but they are visible. This Mercedes problem is different. It hides inside the most important part of the new power unit era: the battery. And that is why the telemetry has become so valuable. The team cannot just look at the final result and say, the car stopped. They have to study everything that happened before it stopped. They have to read temperature behavior, energy deployment, voltage changes, load patterns, warning signals, stress over the stint. They have to understand whether the failure came from a sudden defect, accumulated heat, or a weakness that appears only when the system is pushed to its limit. That is not a simple investigation. It is like trying to understand why a phone suddenly dies, except the phone is powering a Formula One car at racing speed, under extreme heat, with a championship on the line. And the worst part is that the failures have not all been identical. Mercedes have admitted the incidents come from the same general area of the battery, but not from the exact same failure every time. That one detail makes the problem much more worrying. Because if every car failed in exactly the same way, the fix would be clearer. Find the broken component. Replace it. Redesign it. Protect it. But when the symptoms are similar and the causes are slightly different, the team has to consider something deeper. Thermal management. Internal structure. Manufacturing variation. Cooling capacity. How aggressively the system is being used. How the energy store behaves when the driver is fighting at the front and demanding everything from the car. That is why this reliability crisis feels dangerous. It does not look like bad luck anymore. It looks systemic. And systemic problems are the ones that make teams lose sleep. Because they do not only threaten the next race. They threaten the next 5 races. They threaten customer teams. They threaten development plans. They threaten the confidence of both drivers. This is where McLaren enters the story. Because Mercedes are not the only ones affected by this power unit family. McLaren have also suffered. Lando Norris had power unit related retirements, and McLaren had already seen electrical concerns earlier in the season. The same general component area, including the battery module, had become part of the conversation. That matters because it removes the easiest excuse. If only one Mercedes car had failed, maybe it could be an isolated issue. If one driver had suffered, maybe it could be usage, setup, or pure misfortune. But when the works team and a customer team both begin seeing battery-related concerns, the paddock starts to see a pattern. And patterns create fear. For Mercedes, that fear is multiplied by the transport problem. Russell's failed battery module from Canada could not simply be flown back to the United Kingdom for immediate deep analysis. Because of the safety rules around these powerful new energy stores, the damaged unit had to go through special procedures and travel by sea. That means the physical evidence could take months to reach the people who need to dismantle it properly. Think about how frustrating that is. The team knows the failure was serious. They know it damaged Russell's championship position. They know it may happen again. But the part that failed is not immediately available for the full investigation. So the engineers have to lean on telemetry. They have to work from the story the car told before it died. And that puts even more weight on the data. Every temperature spike matters. Every abnormal reading matters. Every small sign before the shutdown could become the clue that saves a future race. This is why the telemetry is not just a technical detail in the Antonelli and Russell rivalry. It is the hidden referee. Because until Mercedes understand the battery behavior fully, the internal fight cannot feel completely clean. Russell can say, "I need a chance to fight." Antonelli can say, "I am winning when the car finishes." Both can be right. And Mercedes can still have a championship problem. Because a dominant car with a fragile battery creates a brutal emotional split. The drivers know the performance is there. They can feel it. They can win with it. They can fight at the front with it. But they also know the same system that gives them power can turn against them without warning.